So.
It's that Rob Menendez guy.
Yeah, who's that?
Damn,
Okay,
look,
so
like bullshit. That's bull. I call bull. I call this bull.
Listen, they.
I think we should go in order of who showed up first.
You know what? I would 100% do that, and then people are gonna just start like when they get up, they're gonna be like, "Oh wait, no, this is." We sometimes are so hardened by following rules that when there's a moment for being doing
creative,
light improvising, we fold. All right, let's see. Where's Raphael? What do you want to?
So your wife is with you this time?
Right over there. Geez.
Yeah. So is it because the spouse is
How much longer do you want to?
She's here for the First Lady's luncheon, I guess, Thursday.
There's a First Lady's luncheon? I had no idea.
Well,
Is it in the White House?
no, it's somewhere else.
Oh.
You know, the Christmas party?
Yeah.
So, the first time ever, I bring my tux over, getting ready to go to the and they didn't invite us. I mean, we got disinvited.
People were disinvited?
They didn't want to know what the numbers would be. They'd be like, no one's showing up.
I
got Becca B.
Like, our ticket. Sorry, they didn't answer.
All right.
So it's like, okay.
All right, I'm gonna.
Extra day and hang out and party.
What's that?
I can't believe how are you? White, the First Lady. You're going to the... Yes. Okay.
All right.
Hi, Rob. Hi.
Thanks for coming to our hangout here.
You got it, baby.
All right, so we're good. Delia, we'll wait for Delia, and then we're gonna get started. It's like sort of a trickle effect.
Becca, how are you? Oh man, I didn't know they were gonna be the heavy guns in here, man.
The heavy guns.
Becca, Delia.
Good.
You always look so together.
All right.
So put together.
You guys all good? All right, we're gonna get started. All right. Appreciate everyone coming to join today's press conference with some incredible colleagues. I want to thank the ACLU, so many organizations for bringing us all together to talk about Republicans' misalignment with where the American public is at. While people struggle with the affordability crisis, while people can increasingly oppose President Trump's immigration enforcement across our country, and before Republicans vote on this, I make one recommendation to them. They can believe the president's narrative that he has been lying about since 2024, that this is going after hardened criminals, because the reality is, by ICE's own data, that the people being detained and being held are nonviolent, non-criminals. They are people from all of our communities who have a right to be here, who have been trying to navigate our broken immigration system, who are being picked up at those hearings that they are required to go to. That is the reality. So before any Republican thinks about voting on this, they should ask themselves, one, what their constituents actually want. Two, if they're still inclined to vote for it, they should come to the private detention centers in our districts, like mine in Delaney Hall, and talk to the mothers and fathers, even a pastor that's being held there, because that is who Trump and Republicans are targeting. So if they want to allot another $70 billion to ICE and CBP, they should deal firsthand and encounter firsthand the carnage that they are causing to communities across our country. I'm so thankful to have so many incredible colleagues here with me who you'll hear from. But it's important in this moment that Republicans open their eyes to the harm that ICE and CBP are causing. And that's the conversation that we want to have today. Several of our colleagues will be joining us, but I'd like to first call up Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, who will then hand it off from there.
Yes, you.
I want to thank Congressman Menendez for your leadership, for your willingness to always speak truth, especially in these precise moments where so many people in our communities are living scared, where there are so many people who have not left their homes, in some cases for weeks, out of fear that somehow ICE might take them, maybe because of their status or because of the color of their skin. My name is Delia Ramirez, and I'm the Congresswoman Congresista Delia Ramirez from Illinois 3. Orgullosa hija de padres guatemaltecos, ciudadana de nacimiento por derecho, y tu representante de Distrito 3, que está luchando contra los fascistas todos los días. Yes, I said it in Spanish. Because even as fascists seek to diminish, divide, and dehumanize us, we remain powerful, proud, and defiant. So let me be blunt and clear. In case that the RNC wants to clip it again, DHS remains the biggest threat to our collective safety, and funding it only fuels our own destruction and human suffering. In case you didn't hear it, let me say it again for the RNC. DHS remains the biggest threat to our collective safety, and funding it only fuels our own destruction and human suffering. For over a year, our communities have witnessed abductions and kidnappings, the unlawful detention of children, the militarization of our cities, the murder of our neighbors, the persecution of dissent, and the rise of fascism in our nation, all facilitated by the Department of Homeland Security. Yet there's those in Congress who would still expand DHS's budget and ICE capacity to enact Trump's mass deportation agenda and further hurt our communities. You see, Senate Republicans are streamlining a DHS reconciliation funding bill this week, looking to again defund housing, defund healthcare, education, and infrastructure in order to fund ICE and CBP with an additional $70 billion of your taxpayer dollars. Folks, this moment requires us to move beyond statements to demonstrate our commitment to real accountability. You see, every single member of Congress who is saying that it is unacceptable that DHS terrorize our communities has to listen to the growing number of Americans calling for more than training, more than reform, and more than the bare minimum policy. Those of us who are clear that our taxpayer dollars should not be used to terrorize our communities and violate our rights must not only stand opposed to new investments, but we should significantly diminish ICE's funding and their authority. It is why I introduced the MELT ICE Act, which has been officially endorsed by the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. It ends DHS immigration detention of our children, of women, of families. It also disrupts immigration enforcement, and then it redirects money back into the communities who have been impacted by the enforcement, the terrorizing that you have seen. And while Republicans try to cut funding for our communities, it is important for us to ask, what would our neighbors, what would our constituents want us to spend money on? Maybe it's housing, maybe it's healthcare, maybe it's community safety. You see, the MELT ICE Act is the first step. It's the sand in the line. Because we know that an agency established to violate our rights under the pretense of ensuring our security cannot be reformed. It must be dismantled piece by piece, and something new, a system that honors our rights, our dignity, and our humanity must be built. Because we brought ICE and DHS into this world, and we could also have a world without it. So today is an invitation to every member of Congress. Let's melt ICE. Let's dismantle DHS, and let's put our constituents, our freedom of speech, our communities in front of all the terrorism that we see by this agency. With that, it is my honor to introduce Congressman Joaquin Castro.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I'm Joaquin Castro, proud to represent my hometown of San Antonio, Texas. And last year, Republicans passed the One Big Ugly bill. It gave $170 billion to the Department of Homeland Security, including $75 billion for ICE. It also ripped away $186 billion in SNAP benefits and failed to extend ACA tax credits that help families keep food on the table and keep their health insurance. Americans were faced with a grim split screen. On the one hand, you saw ICE, flush with cash, acting with impunity in our communities and cities. Roving patrols of masked agents body slammed an elderly man in Los Angeles, dragged a pregnant woman along a street in Minneapolis, and raided an apartment using military tactics and a Black Hawk helicopter in Chicago. ICE agents shot and killed U.S. citizens Ruben Ray Martinez of my hometown, San Antonio, Renee Good, an activist and mother, and Alex Preddy, an ICU nurse serving veterans. And at the beginning of this year, they locked away 5-year-old Liam Ramos, the boy in the bunny ears, who captured the hearts of a nation. Since then, ICE has continued to target children, families, and our neighbors who have contributed to the places we call home. in pursuit of Stephen Miller's quotas, ICE isn't going after the worst of the worst. They detained Juan Nicolas, a 2-month-old boy who was sick with bronchitis. Minu Batra, a 56-year-old mother who is the only Punjabi, Hindi, and Urdu court interpreter in Texas. Pregnant girls, many who are the victims of sexual assault and who are giving birth in ICE prisons. Juan Velasco, a husband, father of 3, healthcare worker, and DACA recipient. And Dr. Ezekiel Velis, a doctor meeting the healthcare needs of a severely underserved population in South Texas. Companies like CoreCivic and Geo are making tens of millions of dollars from DHS. The more beds they fill, and the longer folks are detained, the more money they make. This is a for-profit industry. And as private companies and Trump's cronies benefit from this cruel mass deportation campaign, working families in Texas and across the country are having a harder and harder time getting by. So as Americans are seeing children in prison and families torn apart, they're grappling with losing access to SNAP benefits while grocery prices keep climbing higher and higher. And families are paying $300 more at the grocery store compared to last year. The annual cost of healthcare insurance has surged by $1,500. In my San Antonio district, 87,000 people are at risk of losing their health insurance. On top of this, Trump's war in Iran is causing the price of a gallon of gas to skyrocket, which I'm sure just about everyone here has paid for. Does funding ICE to enrich Trump's friends and cronies help American families? No. It's at the expense of hardworking people and families, and at the expense of our humanity. Today, we're standing up and rejecting the Senate's reconciliation package, which would give ICE and CBP an additional $70 billion. We're rejecting giving Trump another slush fund for more corruption and more crony contracting. Congress must end family detention and focus on creating a humane and effective alternative. We must also create legal pathways to citizenship and the war in Iran and prioritize lowering costs for families. I will be voting no on the Big Ugly Bill 2.0. I'd now like to introduce Representative Becca Ballant from Vermont.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank Chair Espaillat of the CHC and also my colleague, Representative Menendez, who's been an incredibly strong leader on these issues. So look, let's just keep it real here, okay? A budget is a statement of our values, it's a statement of our priorities, and Trump's budget tells you everything that you need to know about what his priorities are. Somehow, there is never enough money for food or for healthcare or for housing, but there is always more money for ICE and Border Patrol and for the Pentagon. You have a president who wants to pump even more money into a rogue agency that's operating cruelly and without any accountability. I've seen it firsthand. I was on the ground in Chicago with a subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee. I was on the ground in Minneapolis, St. Paul. It is cruel, it's brutal, it's terrorizing communities, families, and schools. Federal immigration agents have been using their authority to terrorize our communities. That's the piece I want us to remember. It's our communities, it's not other people, it's us. They have allowed dozens of deaths in their care, and as my colleague just spoke about, we have lost 3 Americans to ICE's brutality. And obviously, I'm here to say it has to stop. Categorically, it has to stop, and I will not support any more money to fund this kind of brutality from ICE. And look, we have a speaker right now who is doing everything that he can to give over the power of Congress over to the president. I talk about this all the time because it's not the congressional piece of this that I'm upset about. It's that we, as members of Congress, we are the voice of the people. So when Speaker Johnson in that building continues to give away our power as members of Congress, he's really giving away the people's power. It is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And although he would like to continue to prop up his would-be king, we are not going to be part of that charade. And look, they don't need more money. That's the other piece of this. $170 billion already in the budget that passed last summer to supersize ICE and Border Patrol. We have seen what that has done to our communities and to families in all of our districts. We do not need to give them any more money. And the conversation has drifted so far away from any kind of common sense. We're asking for a humane system of immigration. We're asking for accountability. We're asking that we follow the rule of law. We're asking that we treat people with dignity. We're asking that people get due process and that the law is applied equally to all. And honestly, we need serious colleagues on the other side of the aisle who are interested in doing the real work of governing. That's what we need right now, and that's what we can't find. We need them to stand against these horrible policies and with the people who sent them there to work on their behalf. We also need Republicans to get serious about solving our immigration system problems and not just trot it out every election cycle and never offer any solutions that provide people with dignity and respect and a pathway to citizenship. They need to be part of the solution instead of taking every chance that they get to tear down visa programs, to terminate TPS for people, to make life impossible for federal workers who oversee legal immigration pathways and paperwork. Federal workers who want to do right by the people in their communities, and the federal government is making it impossible for them to do their jobs. Republicans in this moment are treating this like it is a game. It is not a game. These are real people. These are real lives. They're real families with genuine hope and dreams for themselves and their children. And we have to keep them at the center of the work we do always. We have to hold the line on this budget. Our neighbors are counting on us to fight for them and with them for their well-being. I know that we can do this together, but we have to stand strong. Thank you. And with that, it's my honor to hand the mic over to Representative Rashida Tlaib from Michigan.
Thank you so much. ICE and CBP, we all agree, are terrorizing our neighborhoods. Murdering U.S. citizens in broad daylight, tear gassing our children at schools, separating our families, and abducting our immigrant neighbors and locking them up in cages, where many have died because of medical neglect and violent abuse. This is what the Trump administration is doing right now with the DHS funding. And 2025 was ICE's deadliest year in 2 decades. At least 32 people died in their custody, and at least in a few months only in 2026, additional 70 more people have died in ICE custody. A lot of people know I'm from Detroit, but they probably don't know that I grew up in Southwest Detroit, where there's 20 different ethnicities. For years, Southwest Detroit has warned people that ICE is out of control. Even in previous administrations, they were too militarized and they were unhinged. Racial profiling people that literally were running around our public parks, to taking a child away from her father in front of the child care, and then even in front of our high school, middle schools. So while ICE is locking up more of our immigrant neighbors more than ever before, 70,000 people, investors, this is why I want you all to follow the money, it's important. Investors in private prison companies like Core Civic and GEO Group are getting richer. The violent kidnappings and the murders and the incarceration of our loved ones is fueling record profits for these companies. And it's still not enough to satisfy their greed. Last December, I conducted an oversight visit in North Lake, ICE prison in Baldwin, Michigan, where there has been one death so far, multiple suicide attempts, including a young teenage boy, I believe he's 19, might turn 20 years old, while they're using the crack of a cell phone glass, slicing his arms, wanting to die, then stay in that Baldwin facility. And GEO Group, who owns and runs the facility, reported $254 million in profits last year. These companies are making record profits off of violence and human suffering. And the agency, and this is so important, is boasting about it. I mean, they're literally bragging. Talk about ICE bragging about it. ICE Director Todd Lyons had said they need to treat ICE detention and deportation, quote, like Amazon Prime, but with human beings. It's sickening. The American people are begging us to stop sending their tax dollars to fund this trauma and this violence. And I want you all to know that my residents have told me, Rashida, mask or no mask, they won't stop killing us. Even with the more training, they won't stop killing us. This is an agency built to terrorize our communities. And they scream at me, please abolish ICE. So we must come together to defeat this violent budget reconciliation bill that sends a blank check to ICE and CBP. ICE and CBP already received, you all know, $170 billion. And there's always, and it just makes me so angry that there always is money for violence. But Trump is around the corner cutting $1 trillion in health care, the largest cut in American history. But magically, he found $75 billion more for ICE and CBP. So I'm sick and tired of hearing that our government doesn't have the resources to invest in life. Things like clean water, childcare, to make sure that people who get sick also get treatment that they need, to make sure that our children have clean water, to make sure that our neighbors have roof over their heads. They don't seem to always find the money for that, but they always seem to find money for agencies like ICE and CBP that many taxpayers do not want to fund. So again, thank you all so much for being here. Keep speaking out, keep showing up, keep protesting. Let's make sure that Congress stops funding ICE and CBP together. With that, I'd like to invite my colleague, Representative Judy Chu.
I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, Chair Emerita of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus and representative of California's Los Angeles County District. And I'm here to say no to Republicans' partisan scheme to hand another blank check to ICE and CBP. ICE needs to be reined in, not rewarded with a blank check. Starting in Los Angeles, we've seen Trump's immigration forces terrorize our communities with violence and fear. They've killed American citizens, separated families, and thrown children into detention centers in appalling conditions. These are not the actions of an agency that deserve to be funded as is. We need reforms, we need accountability, and we need it now. We've already waited far too long. But because Republicans refuse to come to the table to work with Democrats to protect the rights of citizens and immigrants, we are in day 66 of the longest partial shutdown in U.S. history. And let me be clear, it could all be over today. Instead, congressional Republicans are digging their feet in the sand, rejecting a bipartisan deal that would finally end this shutdown, instead give more money, even more power to ICE with zero accountability measures. But you know what? We still remember Alex Preddy. We still remember Renee Good. And I will always remember my constituent from Arcadia in Los Angeles County, Carlos Montoya, who came to a Home Depot in Monrovia one morning in search of honest work. He was from Guatemala, and he'd been here for 3 years working as a day laborer. But that morning turned into an unspeakable tragedy when ICE showed up. Masked men in tactical gear leaped out of an unmarked vehicle and swept up 12 men in yet another ICE raid designed to terrorize and spread fear throughout the community. Carlos, in an attempt to flee from federal agents raiding this Home Depot, ran onto the 210 freeway where an SUV hit him and he lost his life. He was only 52 years old. He had 4 daughters and he had grandchildren who loved him dearly. And I will never forget the hundreds who came out for his memorial. We marched around that Home Depot parking lot and we laid flowers at the place where Carlos died. We need Trump to stop weaponizing ICE's violence against American people to intimidate and harm our communities. And that's why I helped introduce the Visible Act, which would prohibit all immigration enforcement officials from wearing non-medical face coverings, require them to display their name or badge number, and the agency they represent and ensure that agents are held accountable when they violate our rights. And that's one example of a common sense reform that Republicans are refusing to even consider. And while they ignore the cost of living crisis caused by Trump's tariffs and the war in Iran, they're working right now to send billions of dollars more to ICE. Well, Americans don't want this. They want Congress to uphold their civil rights and stop the blatant abuses we've seen in cities all across this country. That's the bare minimum we can do for Renee, for Alex, and for Carlos, for their families and their loved ones, and all in our communities who continue to be unjustly targeted. I say no to the Republican partisan scheme to fund ICE. And now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague from Orange County, California, Lou Correa.
Thank you, Judy. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time and interest. I'm going to ask all of you again a very basic question. What the hell happened? Homeland Security created 25 years ago to protect this country, to protect our citizens from foreign terrorist attacks. Today, American citizens are running for their lives, scared to death of walking on our streets. In my district, we have individuals, hardworking American citizens, without any criminal record whatsoever, being pulled over by ICE. ICE doesn't like their attitude. They'll arrest them, hold them for days. One individual showed ICE their passport. They still took him in. What is it? Acting ICE Director Lyons told me directly, you don't have to carry your passports. Americans don't need to carry passports in the street. Clearly, carrying a passport today is not enough. Is our country safer today than it was before? Before what? $140 billion of additional funding last year? Now the administration wants another $70 billion? Let me tell you a little example here what safety's about for this country. I have a constituent, an American citizen. She's a sailor, highly decorated, on the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Persian Gulf. Her dad just got deported, and I believe against the law. Has that made our country great? Has that made our country safer? A couple of weeks ago, I got a phone call from my local police chief. Tell me, hey, Lou, I need a favor from you. I need your help. I said, go ahead, Mr. Chief. What can I do? He says, one of my officers, a dreamer, a DACA recipient, her permit, DACA permit, will expire at the end of April. I need it renewed or I'm going to have to terminate her. USCIS will not renew these DACA permits on a timely basis. How is this making our country better? How is having masked, armed individuals with a badge who have no accountability, who do not respect our constitutional rights, how is that making this country better? Of course it's not. Rhetorical question. Bottom line, reform DHS, reform ICE. Do not give them another dime until they start again respecting American rights. The citizens, as well as all those to this country, they must remember we all have rights. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to bring back Mr. Ron Menendez, Senor Menendez, to take questions from you.
Before we take questions, I just want to one through line between all the remarks is that no one is safe in Trump's America. And that's something that Americans have to grapple with. And they have to ask themselves if another $70 billion to ICE will make us any safer. The last point that I want to make is remember that they are asking for $70 billion more on the eve of our November elections. And one of the reforms that they have not agreed to is to ensure that DHS, ICE, CBP are nowhere near our polling locations. They refuse to do that. It's a question that the administration and Republicans should answer. Any questions, happy to answer.
Yes, from my understanding, this funding is being pushed through budget reconciliation, which would avoid any sort of real debate. What procedural steps can be taken to prevent this, if any?
Well, listen, this is what they used to strip $1 trillion in health care in the first reconciliation, what they used to give tax cuts to the top 1% in the first reconciliation. And it's the only vehicle they can use because they know this policy, this appropriation of $70 billion extra dollars to ICE is wildly unpopular amongst Democrats and Republicans, the majority of Americans agreeing that ICE has gone too far. So this is the only way they can possibly get this passed. Democrats are going to stand in the way every single step. That's why I go back to the lead up to November and what they could potentially use the extra $70 billion for to try to militarize ICE across the country. You've already seen them do it in Chicago, LA, Minneapolis, and I'm worried that they would use the $70 billion to have ICE, to have CBP in blue districts across the country to try to intimidate voters. That's a question the administration and Republicans need to answer. That's right. And that's what, but look at one of the reforms that we have asked for over and over again during this partial government shutdown is to guarantee that they will not. And they have not agreed to those terms. So yes, it's something that I'm very concerned about. Thank you all so much.